Hi, and welcome to the Swan Effect Mum's Coffee and Chat podcast. This week, I'm joined by Louise, and we're going to be talking about pregnancies and emergency C-sections during a global pandemic. So I have had exactly the same thing happen to me in 2020. Yours was just in 2021 in January. So we've got a lot in common, and that's how we met on Instagram no, we met before you had Emilia.
You did, yeah.
I said, yeah, as soon as you said what happened, I was like, oh, because I knew how hard it is in hospital and how things, the restrictions and everything. So yeah, as I said, we met on Instagram in November 2020. I looked back to check. So it's not that long, really, to be fair.
No, it feels like it's been longer because we talk quite a lot. So
and it's weird because it's nice. Like, you meet a lot of people and lots of people add you and everything. And I don't generally remember who made the first move.
No, I don't.
Who's DMs first? But I just remember, like, we just kind of got, I don't know, sometimes you just click with someone and you go, oh, that person's got the same thing in common as me, or I don't know, because you didn't have a kid at that point either. So
no,
sometimes that helped.
Well, I joined because I have a personal Instagram that I have I use I've had for years. And then when I got pregnant, I wanted to set up like a mum Instagram because basically I didn't want the algorithm to mess too much with what I was looking at on the other side. Totally failed. Did not work.
No.
It's like just
you can't try and beat Instagram because it's all over the place at the minute.
No, I remember in my early pregnancy being really annoyed because I went onto Facebook and there was the most gorgeous pair of dungarees and I was like, those are so cute. And then clicked on them and realized they were for children. So the algorithm was at that stage where it was still half for me and half for small children.
They listen to your voices on Facebook. We were talking about a caravan one day in the car. He wasn't even on his phone. And then we got to our destination, and the adverts on Facebook, it was caravans. And he said, search. I hadn't typed in caravans. We were talking about caravans and it searched it. So then
that happened to me when I was talking about gazebos. That happened. The same thing happened to me. I'd been talking about a gazebo, and then I was on Instagram scrolling through, and under a suggested post, it came up with
creepy. It is so creepy. So So I did the same thing. I kind of started this account. For me was, I don't know. I didn't want to bombard my friends and family with baby stuff because I never really liked that when people did it. Do you know what I mean? Before I was a mum, so. I'm so happy I've done it. There isn't actually that many friends and family that follow me on this account, and
same.
Yeah, because I share things on my personal pages, but I don't bombard it. And it's turned into such a big network now of mums. Have you found that?
Yes, and I've made some really good friends, like yourself included. But I've got people that when you're having a bit of a day and you'll go on Instagram and you send you're like, oh no, this has happened. They're like, same happened, it's fine. And I found other social media platforms, Facebook's a really good one for that, because you don't feel stupid, but you feel like sometimes the questions that you're asking should probably be common sense, but you can fire it out onto an anonymous kind of forum, and it's like, what's happening here? And everyone else is like, no, that's normal, and you big sigh of relief.
You know what I always say with Instagram is I'm more friends with mums that have got either a 2-year-old or a newborn, because that is where I'm at my stage. Well, we'll start with the questions then. I'll try and do this as quickly as possible. So where do you live and who do you live with?
So I live in Cumbria on the west coast, and I live with my husband Paul and my daughter.
Lovely. And that was it. This is what I was going to ask you. So how did you feel when you found out you were pregnant, and what month was it? So was it during the pandemic?
So I found out I was, sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. I'll ask the other bits afterwards. Go on, you tell me that.
No, I found out that I was pregnant on VE Day last year.
So well within that. Yeah, you were deep into the
pandemic. We were a month into lockdown. Well, just 3 weeks into sort of the lockdown, but we were into the pandemic. She had been planned. We knew that we got married in November 2019, and we knew that we wanted to start a family. So she was planned in that respect, but I don't know, it was it didn't really quite hit what we'd done in terms of were pregnant in a pandemic, because we'd never seen, obviously our generation, we've never seen anything like this. Obviously, there was a pandemic in 1916. No, it's crazy. And we've never experienced anything like this. So there was me sort of remembering SARS, bird flu, that kind of thing, and thinking it'll be fine. It's not gonna, it'll go within a couple of months and everything will be fine. And then obviously it just started snowballing, didn't it? And it was it was VE day, and I'd cut back on on alcohol while we were trying, obviously. I mean, not that I was crazy in the first place, but we'd cut back, and we were sat in the garden, and I had a really nice bottle of wine in the fridge, especially for VE day. And I said to Paul, I'm gonna go and open my wine. And I remember him saying, you should probably check first, just in case. And I was like, nah, I'm fine. I'd had no symptoms, no nothing.
You're not a few days late by then?
No, I'd to be fair, I was due, I think. And I was like maybe one day late, and I was like, I'm quite all over the shop anyway, so that wasn't a big thing for me. And I only had those really cheap, just the line ones that come up.
Yeah, do you know what? I swear by them, because I know people that spend a fortune. And when I first tried to get pregnant, I was spending a fortune. And someone said, the ones in Poundland, they're the same. They can't sell dodgy pregnancy tests. They're exactly the same. So, yeah.
So that was what I used, and, went and did my test. And then I put it on the side, and I was like pottering around. The Lynne is drifting in through the open windows and all the rest of it. And then I looked at this test and I was like, hang on a minute, that's a line. And then I shouted himself, and I was like, is that a line? He's like, I think so. And it was 25-4 on, obviously it's a bank holiday VE day.
And it was hot that day, I remember.
It was hot.
Yeah.
And I had to leg it down to Tesco to go and get a clear blue test, because we didn't know. Yeah. We weren't sure. And then it obviously came up with that. And I remember sitting in the garden, and I was like, oh my God.
That's crazy, because if you're just one day, then you were what, 2 weeks by then?
Mm-hmm.
Well, 4 weeks.
I was 4 weeks technically. But it was, so it would have been around 2 weeks. It was very, very early on that we found out. So it was one of those where it was like, well,
now you can't drink that wine, can you? Because you feel awful.
Well, this is it. I mean, I later found out apparently they were on their own little bubble for 6 weeks to start with, and I was like, could have had the wine. Probably still wouldn't have done, to be fair. Yeah. But so it was super early on. And then obviously it all kind of snowballed from there. And I was like, oh no, this is going to be harder than we thought it was going to be.
That's it. So I was going to ask you, wasn't I? Were you worried about having a baby during a pandemic? But I suppose I'm only asking out now because it's a year on and I know how it's been. I suppose at the time I found out that the day that Boris said pregnant women have to stay in, like self-isolate. And I was 8 weeks and I went, I don't want to tell people I'm pregnant. Like I've just had it. I didn't like telling people until I was 12 weeks, but obviously I had to. Didn't really think much about it. Phil had what we thought was 6 weeks off. Thought great, holidays, he stayed home with me, and I thought this is going to be wonderful. And then I told everybody because I had to. And I just didn't know what was ahead. So how was your pregnancy in general, rather than me blabbering all about myself?
No, not at all. No, it was pretty sort of straightforward. I was sort of slightly higher risk because I've got joint hypermobility syndrome.
So what's that then, if people don't know what that is?
So it's basically it's people kind of look at it as an extreme double jointedness, but it basically means my limbs overextend, so my bones can bend, but the ligaments and joints that join them all together are prone to strains, and it's like, it's strain injuries and things like that. So it is what it is. You manage it on top of as you are. But I also have, like, my mum wasn't very well a few years ago, and she'd had a blood clot, so that obviously pushes you higher up on the register as well, things like that. So I was advised to shield and to work from home for pretty much straight away, which is what I did. And then it was, in terms of the actual pregnancy, it was relatively straightforward. We only had a couple of, like, we went in once for reduced movement, things like that, but we didn't kind of have any major issues. But it was mainly the sort of being in the pandemic that was the thing, because no antenatal classes, no no groups, no swimming classes for mums, like gyms, exercise, that all went out of the window. And it became a very, I mean, like you say, the novelty wore off very, very quickly. It was just, you didn't go anywhere, you didn't see anything or anyone.
The next question I was going to ask you was, do you feel like you missed out a lot on the special pregnancy milestones because of the pandemic? So you just said you did. So antenatal classes, I wasn't ever going to do that because I did it with my firstborn. So what was anything, so anyone that's pregnant now that's listening, what is available? What if it wasn't available via your midwives, advice or anything? Did you go out and look for things online? And was there anything?
I did,
if you give people some advice if they're pregnant now.
I found the Baby Academy on Instagram, and I did a free online class with them. And I just read as much as I possibly could from different places.
Academy? What did they provide?
That was an Instagram company, and I think they're run by midwives. So they had a free online class that was about 2 hours long. So that covered basic baby care, so things like the cord care when they first come home, where baby should be sleeping, where how the bath, things like that, and that was really good. That was free.
So the things that you really need to know, really, isn't it?
Yeah, the really essential stuff. And then I'm a reader. I'm not very good with technology. Right. So I mean, this Zoom is about as complicated as I get, because everything
very
else
well,
is just
very well.
But yeah, and then the rest of it was just books. I read a really useful book called, this is where I'm not going to be able to remember what it's called, Expecting Better, and I can't remember who it's by. But it was really, you have a look on Google, it's there somewhere. But that was really practical because that had statistics, which I like. I'm quite a statisticky person. Terrible at maths, like statistics. And that was really helpful with things especially things like food, because there's especially in pregnancy, you sort of get told you can't have anything at all.
Everything is not allowed. But then what's even worse is your mother or your aunties or people that are say 60 plus. I had that when I was pregnant with you. I smoked when I was pregnant with you. I had prawns. I had raw eggs. I had this. I had that. Nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, well, do you know what, Mum? There must have been some things wrong with some babies of my generation, because it's not allowed now. And I suppose not to take that risk, they just say don't have it at all. So the baby shower. Did you have a baby shower at all?
I had a surprise baby shower, which was done virtually. Which was nice. Yeah, it was really, really lovely. So my husband and I, obviously, like I said, live in Cumbria. I'm Northumbrian, born and bred, and he's from Birmingham. So obviously I've got friends in the area that I live in, but obviously we couldn't meet anyone. Nobody was allowed to come anywhere. And obviously all my friends from home and all that kind of stuff. And one of my friends had, again, terrible with technology. So she was asking me if I'd ever used Facebook rooms or something. I was like, oh no. And she's like, oh, I'd like to give it a go. I'm like, all right, okay. And then everyone just kind of popped up, and it was really, really lovely.
That's so nice.
It was lush. I had no makeup on. I had my hair in a big
You're pregnant, you're allowed to.
And the most disgusting cardigan you've ever seen in your life. But it was lovely. So I had a surprise baby shower.
You can always quickly go and get dressed. That's what I think, if you're not laughing.
To be fair, as my closest friends, I was just like, it's fine. You've all seen.
No, exactly. We were
I'm definitely
lucky. It planned out really well because I had Ronnie in October. So I think I decided, because the first time someone two friends threw me a baby shower, and it was big, it was a fair. So I said, oh, look, I think I might have something in my garden, in September, because it'll be warm. We'll just do a bit of a buffet and, it'll be fine. And we did, because we could sit outside in the garden and everyone was distanced themselves because it's quite a big garden. And it was lovely. It was nothing like my first. It was a very chilled affair, but everyone was so happy just to be with other people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was so happy by the end of that day. And I don't know if people are supposed to have them for second babies. I just thought, do you know what? I think everybody could do with a bit of a pick-me-up. It was just lovely. But I just thought in September it was warm. I don't know. Probably wouldn't have bothered if I was like you and having a baby in January. But I thought I saw an opportunity and went with it. And that's what I advise anybody that's pregnant now.
Definitely.
God knows how long this is going to go on for. I mean, I don't think lockdown will go on forever, but I think there'll definitely be restrictions.
No, I agree. I think we're looking at potentially long-term movement restrictions on us and stuff like that. So if you can have an opportunity to get together with people, do it, because I mean, look what happened at Christmas last year. I mean, that was horrible, because I had planned for my family to come over, because I turned full term 37 weeks on Christmas Eve.
So it's any time after that, isn't it?
Literally any time after that. And my family were going to come over from Northumberland, and then when the restrictions were changed, it meant that it just wasn't possible for them, because it would have been a 5-hour round trip, which just it wasn't feasible. I mean, one of my friends was saying that by the time she sees me next, that I will have had an entire pregnancy, and my baby will probably be 5 months old by the time I get to meet them. And I mean, that just blows my mind. And I mean, we're quite grateful that she's not going to remember this. We will. We'll always remember it and think, oh God, wasn't that awful? But they won't.
They haven't got close.
So no, I mean, I can't wait to. I mean, the first picture of the three of us as a family is me lying on the table in theatre, and I've got on. Have you ever heard of Herdwick sheep? They're called hoodies. They're these really, really cute sheep, and they're up in Cumbria, and there's a whole brand on them, and I'm basically wearing this sheep mask with a big pink smiley. With this big pink smiley face, and it's just a hoodie mask, and I just look like a lunatic. But it's going to be like her 18th birthday, and I'm like, oh yes, the time that you were born in the middle of a pandemic. So
the COVID babies, they're always
COVID babies,
going to be referred to as COVID babies. I quite really like that. Like it's a conversation starter for sure, isn't it? When they're all
definitely. Oh God, yeah.
So I was going to ask you about her. So she made her appearance in January this year.
She did, yeah.
So bar the mask, how did it go?
Oh, it all went a bit wrong.
You know what? Very rarely do I hear a mother going, oh, it was a perfect labour. I was in labour, gave birth, pushed 5 times, and the baby was out. Like, I never hear that story. So tell me, how did it go from, oh, I think it's starting to on the table, opening up? Yeah.
So my waters went at about just after midnight on the morning of the 21st of January. So, which is also my best friend's birthday. And I remember thinking, oh, she's going to share a birthday with Charlie. And I was dead excited. Obviously did the usual, like, nudge the husband, and it was like that Michael Scott gif, like, it's happening. It's happening. Yeah. And he was like, what do you mean it's happening? And yeah, all of that fun. And then after the initial, like, 10 minutes of, I was like, well, what do we do? And he was like, I don't know. But I was just like, what do we do now? So I phoned the hospital and said my waters have gone, and they were like, well, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, sure. Because I didn't realize this at the time, but apparently some women, their waters kind of go, and it's quite a slow thing. Mine wasn't. Mine was definitely, that is definitely what's going on.
No, I think mine was hind waters I had with Fion. I felt like I sat up in bed and I went, I've either just peed myself or a little bit of water's come out. I thought, like you just said, it would be like you see in the films, where the woman goes, splashes it everywhere. No, mine wasn't. It was, but I had, mine were hind waters apparently that broke, not the main.
So from the hospital, and they basically said, all right, okay, see how you get on, and let us know, kind of thing. So I was like, okay. Everything that I'd read was like, you'll probably start off really slow, and you'll have lots of time. You can have a bath and you can chill out. So that was what I did. I mean, 4 o'clock in the morning, I was in the bath. My contractions were a bit all over the spot, but I was like, it wasn't anything too sort of agonizing. Got to about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I called them back, and I was like, I'm still a bit all over the shop. I'm managing at home. And at that point, one of the midwives said, oh, you'll need to come in 12 to 18 hours after your waters have gone, because there's an increased risk of infection. I was like, okay. And we got to midday, and it was still a bit everywhere. So I called them back again, and I'm like, I'm really sorry, it's me again. What do I do? And they were like, well, you should come in really and get checked. So at that point, I'd mentioned that my plan was for a water birth. just to sort of I didn't want to be kind of flat on my back or like crumped up and all the rest of it. So I went in, and we were really lucky because, as with a lot of women during the pandemic, I was told that if I was less than 4 centimeters dilated, they were going to send me home. And that if, my partner wouldn't be able to stay. But if I was like more than 4, then it would be fine. So we got into hospital, and around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we'd had this internal exam, and I was literally 1 centimeter. So bearing in mind, I've been laboring now for about 13 hours.
Wow.
I was like, this is unusual. And then they let me stay, because they said, look, you can either go or you can stay. And I don't know why, I just felt a bit weird about the whole thing. So I said, if it's all right with you, I'll stay. And then, because we couldn't leave the room, I propped open the bathroom door, and I walked 4.4 kilometers over the next sort of 4 or 5 hours. Yeah. I walked because I had to keep moving, because I just didn't know.
That was stress, or like an anxiety thing, or
I think so. It was a bit of both. I was so sick of being pregnant by that point. I mean, I know it's awful. Some women really love pregnancy. I didn't. I just did not like being pregnant.
No. First time I did, second time, no.
No, it just didn't. The whole thing was just like, I felt sick, and I just felt uncomfortable, and the whole thing. So I was like, right, let's just go.
Louise, I love you for saying that, because I think that's the problem, is that people, you think that you have to love it. And do you know what? There's a baby inside of you. It's beautiful. It's amazing. But every single woman has a different story and a different. I know one girl, I'm not going to mention her name. She's been trying, bless her, for years to get pregnant, and she is suffering from that severe sickness thing that
hyperemesis gravidarum.
Thank you very much. It sounds like you just sneezed, but yeah, whatever you just said, that is it. And she is feeling rotten, and she's gutted, I think, because it's like, I've wanted this for so long, and now I just feel horrific all day long. And I'm like, it's just a process that the woman has to go through to get the baby. It's not always going to be magical. It's not always going to be like a fairy tale. It's something that needs to be done for reproduction. We get pregnant, we give birth. We get pregnant, we give birth. And it's like, if we're lucky, we get a good one. If we're not, we don't. And I've had both now.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean you love your child any less. What type of pregnancy you get.
No.
You're giving the cards you're dealt with, aren't you?
That's it. I mean, it's this bizarre feeling of like you absolutely adore the bones of them. You never even met them, but you know that you would do absolutely anything for this baby. But it doesn't mean you're enjoying what's happening.
Yeah.
You're just like, there were days that I was sat there looking at my own stomach going, oh my God, just get here. Let's get here already. So because my contractions were still kind of all over the shop, that was one of the other reasons I walked. I walked in figures of 8, literally 4.4 kilometers. I remember looking at my watch and thinking, oh my God, I've just walked like miles. But when they examined me again, I was still only 1 centimeter.
That's so similar to mine. I was 2 centimeters and I went to 6. So that was 72 hours after I started. It was just,
oh God.
Yeah, it was a long time. Yeah.
I never got to 4. I think I got to 3.5. But what had happened was, after the walking, and we realized that I wasn't going any further, they put me on the induction drip.
Yeah.
Hands down, the worst 6 hours of my life.
Oh, really? So, I've never had that. So why was that?
It did what it was meant to do, but my body just wasn't progressing. So I was contracting regularly, and full on big contractions.
I see you having the pains, but for no result.
And that was exactly it. And I was on the gas and air, but I've got quite a good pain tolerance, and I'm not very good at recognizing when I'm in pain. So what was happening was my contraction was starting, and I was just kind of sat there thinking, is that? And then by the time I'd got on the gas and air, I'd missed it. So I kept on basically being off my face on gas and air at the end of the contraction. So it was a nightmare. Exactly. My husband, thank God, he was an absolute like angel.
Yeah.
He got really good at reading the monitor, and he spotted when they were starting, and he was like, get on it now, and I was sticking on the gas in my head. So it got a bit better once we'd worked that out, but honestly it was horrendous. And after 6 hours of it, the midwife said to me, look, do you want an epidural? And I'd written in my birth plan underneath, what kind of pain relief would you like? I'm not a hero. And that was all I'd written.
Me neither.
No, and that epidural was amazing. Like, I know
But
there's a lot of fear.
Did you know at that point that the water birth was out of the question then?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd looked at it. I'd looked at my options and the contingencies, and just thought, nah, this is not happening. This is going to be what we're doing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't sort of, I didn't have a moment where I was like, oh, I didn't kind of get upset about it. I just thought, we've just got to do what we've got to do here.
It's like you dream, and then the next stage is like, okay, epidural means I'm going to have to lie down and do it. Okay, fine. Yeah.
And that was my kind of thing. But I didn't even get that far because I was so exhausted by this point, because we were now, so my waters had gone just after midnight on the 21st. We were now at 6 o'clock in the morning on the 22nd.
Yeah.
So this had obviously been going on a really long time. And the anaesthetist came in, and God love him, put in the epidural, and I basically passed out. It was just such a relief that I wasn't in pain anymore. I fell asleep.
Yeah.
And I do remember Paul very dimly somewhere in the back of my brain saying to the anaesthetist, there's no point in trying to explain anything to her. Look, she's gone.
She's gone.
And I woke up about 3 hours later and just turned around to the midwife and went, I feel wonderful. When do we start pushing?
Isn't it? Do you know what? Sorry, everybody, but if you're against epidurals, I'm really, really sorry, but I am such an advocate for it. But the minute they put me into the room, the labour room, to give me the epidural, it took 4 attempts, to get it in, because they kept putting it in the wrong place. And I kept apologising because I thought it was my fault. As soon as it went in, as soon as it went in, like, I didn't fall asleep, but I just went, and my legs went dead, like jelly. And I lay there and I went, wow, I feel on top of the world now. I was so happy. I was just on cloud nine. I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. Same. So
anybody that's watching,
get it done.
Honestly,
yeah.
If you're worried about it, don't be, because it was the best thing ever. And I mean, the thing is I'd said on my birth plan as well, happy to have students. Everyone's got to learn at some point, haven't they? So they sent me all the students. I had student surgeons sticking their head around the door going, are you having a natural birth? And I was like, yeah. Little did we know.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, can we come in? I'm like, yes, everyone come. Do you mind? It's just fine. Everyone come in. Just totally not bothered. And this was while I was still on the epidural. And then now the weird thing is, I've got big memory gaps. Not really sure why. I know I had a morphine injection at one point as well, so it could be that
exhaustion, pain. It's pain management. It ignores certain things. I've got.
Yeah. Well, in my head, I was told that they'd basically see how I got on with the epidural, and we'd have a look and see what was what. But I know when I got examined again, I'd literally gone to, and bearing in mind I was still on the drip, so my body's still doing all the contracting.
Yeah.
And I was at 3 centimeters, and it was just bonkers. And then one of the student midwives did an exam, and she looked at her colleague and went, something's not right. And straight away your heart just drops, because you think, well, what's not right?
You see them talking to each other without saying words, don't you? Yeah. And you're like, what?
And you're just like, oh my God, what is happening? And she went, I'm not sure what it is, but I know there's something not right. So then the midwife came in and did her exam. And basically what the student had realised was that Emilia's frenulum, the soft gap on the top of her head, instead of facing this way, it was sideways. And that was the point that they realised that she was side on.
Oh, no.
So we'd gone through all of that.
What?
And she was, oh, my watch is talking to me.
If you don't know what that was, guys that are listening, video people will see it, but Louise's watches just spoke to her.
Just started talking to me. She was never coming naturally. It was always going to end up being a C-section. I mean, they did turn around and say, look, we could leave you on the drip and kind of see what happens, but we can't leave it for too long, because she's either going to need to be manually turned. We didn't know she was a she at this point. you know, or
What was
we
that
can go
decision
for
like for you?
cesarean.
Were you just basically, were you thinking whatever
At this
just do
point,
it?
it was just, that was exactly where we were at. I mean, my husband and I looked at each other and they said, "Oh, we'll leave you to have a discussion." And I remember looking at him going, "I don't even think we need to talk about this." And he shook his head. He went, "No, we don't."
No.
And we said, "It's C-section, fine, let's just go for it." And I think it was within an hour of that, I was on the theatre table. That was that.
Yeah.
Because while she was okay, her heart rate had been pretty much consistent throughout. A couple of little weird bits and bobs. My blood pressure had tanked and then it had gone up again and then it tanked again. And I think it was just sheer exhaustion.
Yeah.
And I wasn't in a position to wait any longer. I had to get her out, basically. Yeah. So, and then she arrived, and that, as they say, is that.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think for me, one of my bugbears is that antenatal classes and things, and they'll say sometimes it doesn't always go to plan. You might have a C-section, and then they just stop. They don't talk about the aftermath. And the first C-section was horrific for me, like traumatic, horrific. Not physically, like you. I live with a lot of pain. I'm always ill, like I'm now. I'm sorry, I've got a cold of some sort. I've got quite a good pain threshold as well, but mentally, I don't think I was prepared for the shock of it. The shock of it. Like you just explained now, you phone them up. "Oh, I think I'm started," and they go, "Oh, just come in when it's a bit better. You know, when you're a bit quicker." Then you go in and they go, "Don't worry, you're only 3." They're just so relaxed when you give them birth naturally. But when it comes to an emergency C-section, so you've had that for hours, sometimes days, like me. Then for some reason, you see them looking at each other with those eyes, talking to each other, they're not saying it out loud. You know the baby's in trouble, or you're in trouble, or both of you are in trouble. And then it's like, "We just need to get you prepped up for theatre." And you go, "Okay, fine." And you're so exhausted, you don't think to ask a lot of questions. Like you said, you just go into flight or fight, baby's got to be fine, do whatever you need to do. And then next thing you know, you're on the table, you're being opened up, the baby comes out, blah, blah. Mine was a bit more traumatic in the sense that Fionn wasn't breathing when she was born. But afterwards, you're lying there and they're like, "You just need to rest. It's going to take a few days for, to recover. Like, be careful when you're standing up and everything tomorrow, blah, blah, blah." I just felt like there wasn't much care, and I didn't know what the hell was going on with a C-section. And I think a lot of women I speak to on Instagram as well, especially if they weren't planned C-sections, they're in so much shock after having a C-section, physically and mentally. And just seems really wrong that it seems to be missing something somewhere in the NHS, that they're not getting the help afterwards.
I think I completely agree. I think I do quite a physical job. I'm quite robust as a person anyway. And I felt really awful. Now thinking about it, I should have stayed in for longer than I did. But I was so desperate to get back on my feet and just do it and just get, So she arrived at 20, I'm looking at my kitchen clock, 20:04 in the afternoon on the 22nd. And I was asking to go home by 10 o'clock the next morning.
Wow.
And I was up and I was on my feet by midday, and I was gone I wasn't even in the hospital for 24 hours after she was born. I was gone. So, however, looking back at it, I probably should have stayed in a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Because I got home and obviously it's major surgery, and all of that. Because your body's had a section as well, like your milk doesn't come in, none of that happens. Now I was really, really lucky in that we were able to we formed a childcare bubble with my parents basically, and my mum, and they came over, and thank goodness they did, because that first 48 hours after coming home was really full on. And because my blood pressure had been all over the shop, I'd been given some stuff called Csection, which you've got to self-inject. It's basically a thinner that stops your blood clotting up too much. And I think it was the second night that we were home, I woke up absolutely drenched in sweat. I couldn't breathe. I felt like there was someone sitting on my chest. And in my head, I was like, I'm in respiratory failure. That's what's happened. I'm in respiratory failure. I remember batting my husband awake and saying, get my mum. My mum's a nurse. And she came running in. And I remember trying to sit up and I couldn't, because obviously C-section's there and you can't sit up. And I was saying to her, I think I'm having a pulmonary embolism. And bless her, she kind of checked me over, had a look at me, and she went, I think you're panicking. And exactly what you were saying, the sheer trauma. And I was having a full-blown panic attack that had started when I was asleep. And I woke up it was horrendous. And that went on for a couple of weeks, and a little bit longer. Every now and then I'd just wake up absolutely past myself. And it's the trauma of that happening when you're not expecting it, and especially when you're not prepared for it. So
I think that's it. I think I for both times I was in hospital for a week each time, and I hated it, but at the same time, it gave me a chance to recover. We'll finish on that note. We'll have a quick break. I need to refill my wine glass, and then we'll get back to it. Okay.
No problem. That sounds good to me.
Thank you. Okay, we're back. So we're going to just talk now about what did we decide we were going to talk about? We're going to
fourth
talk about
trimester,
fourth trimester, aren't we? Yeah. So how have you found the fourth trimester during the lockdown? You know, so you've had the baby, you've come home, but we're still in lockdown. So how have you found that?
It's been an interesting one, because when obviously you first come home, you still have a lot to do with your midwives and all of that kind of stuff. So with Emilia, what we had was this child, honestly, nothing was simple. So first of all, we had that she was a week overdue, and then we had her cord, I think, took 17 days to come off, which to me was just a ridiculous length of time. But we also had, so if there's any mums out there expecting girls or that have girls and they're still in the early days, they get sort of a mini period. So I don't know whether your two have had this. Some girls do, some girls don't. But basically they get a little bit of blood in the nappy, and it's basically like a mini period. It's the hormones phasing out, because obviously they're sharing hormones. It's normally just a little bit. Emilia didn't have a little bit. She had quite a lot, to the point where I was looking at this nappy and thinking there's something really not right here.
Yeah.
And we ended up having to go back into hospital. Just briefly, it was only for it ended up only being a few hours, because we went for a checkup. I don't remember which one it was, 6 week, maybe 8 week, not sure, one of them. And showing the midwife, and she was like, I've never seen that before. And again, your heart just drops out, because you think, oh my God. But, you know, I knew that girls did have that. So to me, I was quite sort of laid back about it. Everything else was fine. Wet and dirty nappies was fine. She was feeding fine. Temperature was fine. Heart rate, breathing, everything else is fine. And it was just this nappy. And I was like, but there's something wrong. And we ended up back in so that she could have that examined. And the support was great. The midwives were fab. They were always on the end of the phone. That was great. And then I switched to my health visitor, who was lovely, really nice lady. Again, just a phone call away, but already, and bearing in mind that Emilia's only 8 weeks old, I'm signed off with the health visitor until, I say signed off, but she won't be coming again until she's 4 months old.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I mean, I have had to contact her because Emilia came up in a rash, which I was like, what is this? It's on every new thing. You can go from being a completely normal, sentient human being to like the tiniest thing being wrong, and your brain just goes poof, and you panic.
I feel like they prepare you so much for everything that can happen in a pregnancy, but they don't. I suppose they couldn't. I suppose they couldn't write about every eventuality of a baby after postpartum. They couldn't. But I think for me, because I don't know whether it was the second time round, it just feels like I'm not getting the health visitor support much. Maybe it's because I've had one and they think, well, you've already been there once before, blah, blah. But I suppose what we were talking about is when you have a baby, the pre-lockdown days, yes, you wouldn't see the health visitor now for a long period of time. And it's scary. You think, but at the same time, you're meeting up with other mums with babies. You're meeting up with mums with older children. I was
just going to say that.
And you're meeting up with your mum, your mother-in-law, if you have one, and things like that. And they go, oh, yeah, no, that's fine. That's because she's had too much milk today. Or, oh, no, that's fine. You just need to change her nappy more. Oh, no, that's fine. She just needs some water. No, you know, and they're these women, experienced women, are the ones that give you advice. And that's the thing with lockdown is yes,
you're not getting that.
So I'm a lot more, I know a lot more than I did the first time. And I suppose for you being a first time mum during lockdown, I would be a bag of nerves, because you rely so much on these women, these amazing mums that have been there, done that, worn the t-shirt as well.
I mean, I'm really lucky. I've got some really close friends from home, and we're in constant contact. So I mean, at least with things like this rash, I was able to fire that straight over to them, and I was like, what is this? And they were like, it looks like it could be a bit of an allergy rash, it could be something else. And then what we think it was is it's something completely ridiculous. We changed our fabric. No, we didn't. We changed our washing detergent from, I think it was Persil to Fairy, all non-bio, but even that we think is what's caused it.
Like that,
something really simple, and that can happen. But obviously, if you, like, to me, I was just like, it's all non-bio is the same. No, it can mess with their skin.
There will, well, non-bio is non-bio, but it might just be that one tiny ingredient in there that's just not great with, or something, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just like, it's that thing, it's that support system of being able to go to like a mum and baby group and sit there and go, is your child doing this? And then somebody else goes, yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
So, you know, you don't have that system in place. However, I did do online baby sensory classes, which were great, because I'd been recommended them by one of my friends who was up in Glasgow, or near Glasgow, and I actually ended up joining the Western Bartonshire baby sensory group, because it was all on Zoom. So I was like, oh, great. And it was fantastic. It was so helpful, just to be, and it was knowing that, like, Friday come 2 p.m. I was interacting with people, and we could do an online thing, and that was really nice. So yeah, that's another big recommendation, if you can find one, is if you can find an online Zoom class, it's fantastic, because you can just talk to people, and, you know, I mean, I say talk to people, I mean, you know, you're mainly just listening to the instructor and doing what you need to do. And this lady was called Jodie, and she was absolutely fantastic. But yeah, you just get in that kind of, you know that there's someone there, and at the end of the class you can stick around.
Let's think about the pros of it as well, rather than just all the negatives.
Yeah,
there is a lady I know who does mini first aid courses, and they were always
really important,
all for babies, and they're always classroom based classes. So since the lockdown, she's had to do virtual classes, and she's busier now than ever, because one, she can still charge the same price, but two, it's virtual. So she's getting people far and wide joining her classes, like you said, Scotland and things like that, because you can do this from home and do that. So yes, you're not in the classroom with other mums, and that's not great, but you can still do your first aid, you can still do your baby sensory. I don't know about baby massage. Have you been offered that by the health visitor?
The baby sensory included a bit of baby massage in it.
But did that come with your the health visitor as well, though?
No.
Oh, really? Because that was something we were offered with Theon, but with Ronnie, I've not been offered it. So I've gone, the council have got this project. So if you look online now, guys, on Facebook or whatever, and look for your local county and search classes, I'm sure there'll be so much available online, because they'll have money and funding and things like that to do them.
She's told me, I think she has told me about the page that they have classes available on. I've just everything that I found on Facebook or Instagram. But that is something that, if you are going to do it, again, new parents or people that are expecting, is baby first aid. Get it done, because it's so important. Like, I would recommend that for anybody, because it's that initial period of time, and it's how fast you react can massively improve chances of, if anything goes wrong.
Ronnie's coming up to 6 months, so we're starting to feed her pureed food now. And I said, I need to do it again. Just it's the choking thing that goes.
I'm nowhere near like weaning yet, and I'm already like, how small can you cut up grapes? Thinking about it already, like
Fion's nearly 3, and I cut up grapes for her still, and she can chew. She can really chew, but I just think it's an unnecessary risk. Why would you risk it? I've got a knife, I'm cutting that in half, and you can have it, but
I remember when one of my nieces was tiny, we were camping as a family, and none of us noticed, but my sister suddenly lunged across the tent and grabbed her, and it was sort of, so you've got a hand on their neck here, they're down, and hit her on the back and then scooped something, and she'd basically swallowed a bit of spaghetti, and she must have just carried on swallowing it.
Yeah,
and then it just got stuck. And this length came out of this child. I mean, she was only 2, if that. But when she was choking, she didn't make a sound. She just stood very still. And that's often what children do,
that's
because they don't realize what they're doing.
When your
and they
child
don't realize
chokes
what's happening.
They make a noise. I didn't worry.
Yeah.
I'd be like, come on,
make a noise.
smack, smack, smack on their back. But yeah, Fion's done it once where she didn't make a noise. I think it was pasta or something. I can't remember now. But yeah, it was great.
Pasta, the evils of pasta.
I know, but then they tell you to feed them pasta like that early. But yeah, straight away, I didn't lose my cool. And it's funny, mother instinct will kick in.
Yeah.
If it was someone else's kid, I'd lose my cool. But when it's your own, you just go into the mode, because your brain won't allow you to think of the worst case scenario. It just won't let you.
It's almost
go,
like
you're choking, bang, 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 get it out,
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like we had it once with Emilia, and she wasn't choking, but it was basically projectile vomit, and I was absolutely flat out asleep, and she made the tiniest noise, and something, I'm sure it's primeval, in the back of my head went, get her now.
Yeah.
And I actually shot up, grabbed her, turned her over, and she just went whoom, and I was like, this is pleasant. Hello, motherhood. But yeah, your brain almost doesn't let you panic, because it basically puts you into this mode of, you have to sort this now, otherwise there's going to be trouble.
It's funny you should say that. Last night, Ronnie sleeps through the night now, and but last night she made a bit of a funny noise. She made a bit of a funny noise, which is fine, stirring and everything. And I kind of half woke up, and Phil must have half woke up, but we didn't look at each other. And then she went, and she made a funny noise, like it sounded like she was sick, but then it'd gone back in her mouth, like that sort of gurgling noise.
Yeah.
You've never seen 2 people jump out of the bed so quick. I got there first because she's nearer me. And she was fine. She was absolutely fine. I don't know what that noise was. And then we just went back to bed and slept again. Because you can't dwell on it, because you'll never sleep if you dwell on it. You just go, okay, that was fine, back to sleep.
It's one of those things. It's pregnancy. It starts in pregnancy, I think.
Right. So let's keep this down, so I don't have to edit too much. I'm going to read out the last question, because it's a long one. So you have given loads of advice already, but what I send these questions out to my guests so they know what I'm going to be asking them. So what advice would you give to any expectant mums listening, and what can they expect to experience whilst in hospital, and what would you suggest they pack in their hospital bag?
So it's a long question, but they're relatively short answers, because the only advice that I would say is, it is as it is. Don't get upset about the things that you can't change.
Yeah, definitely.
And that you've got no control over. Nothing that you will have done will have caused anything when it comes to do with childbirth. Childbirth's such a mystery still to everyone involved, including the person giving birth. So it is as it is. Don't get stressed about it. If you can pack in your hospital bag, one of the things, so this is possibly slightly TMI, but hey ho, I packed them.
I'm quite happy with TMIs. Go
on. Portable Bday is the first one.
Right.
For your, obviously, if you've had a natural birth and you've got tearing and you've got stitches, you can use the portable Bday, fill it full of warm water when you need to use the toilet, and apparently that's really good. Still haven't used mine, but it was one of the top bits of advice I got given. And the other one is massive pants. Yeah, you're not going to hospital without massive pants. I mean, I'm normally a size 12, and I took in size 22 pants. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
So go for the massive pants, and don't rely on normal sanitary towels. Buy the maternity pads.
Yeah, but don't go mad either, because
don't go mad.
You only need them for about a week. I would say the heavy bit is the first week. After that, you can pretty much have the heavy duty sanitary pads then, I would say.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the long ones, but because they're really uncomfortable maternity pads. They're very thick, very dense, but they're needed in the first week. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, massive pants, maternity pants, and portable Bday.
Yeah.
Three things.
You know what? I'm actually going to jump on board here because, as you just said, expect the unexpected. Have your plan by all means. Everyone has the wish for a birth, you know, and both of mine have gone completely the opposite to what I wanted. However, the second time round, I said to Phil, because I was having lots of complications, I said, I'm going to be in for a while and I won't have visitors like last time. You're not going to be able to come in and help me. So I packed for 3 days, 4 days, because I just knew something wrong was going to happen. I had it in my head. But I took my charger and my iPad and I downloaded all the apps like iPlayer, Prime and things like that, because I've been in and out of hospital for 2 months, I think, before. And it's a very lonely experience in that hospital. I don't know what it was like where you are. There's a amber ward, a red ward and a green ward for the COVID. So we were took to the amber ward. So you were stuck in your bed. You couldn't move. You had everyone to share one toilet and shower. And then you had your COVID test. And then once you came negative, you moved to the green ward where everyone was COVID free. If you had COVID, you went to the red ward. Once I got to the green ward, say there's 6 beds, there was only 4 being used because the middle 2 couldn't be used. And the 3 other ladies had their curtains wrapped around their beds. Oh, gosh. And nobody spoke to me. Nobody spoke to each other. They were just fed up, down. You're worried anyway, because obviously we're there because our babies, there's something going wrong, you know. But it was so lonely. And thank God for technology and FaceTime and things like that. But my advice is take an iPad or a book, whichever you prefer, because if you have your baby, newborn babies are beautiful, but they sleep. You know, they cry for the milk, they get fed, and then they sleep for however many hours. 2 hours, 2-3 hours. So it's a long time on your own, especially if you have a C-section. You can't move around like you think you might be able to. So that's my piece of advice, is download some programs and just relax while you've got the time if you're in hospital for longer than a day or 2.
And don't leave if you don't have to.
Louise did.
Don't do what I did.
You're mad.
Totally 10 out of 10 did not recommend.
No, definitely. That's the only benefit I say about being in hospital for a week each time, is that it gave me time to deal with the baby blues on my own without people being around. I didn't have to deal with visitors this time, because when you have a baby, they all come around in the first week. And also I got to recover and deal with the pain. Like I said, I'm good with pain. Doesn't mean I don't have it. I just dealt with it on my own. And I prefer that in private. I prefer to deal with my pain in private. So yeah, it was definitely, that was one of the good things about it, I suppose. But yeah, iPads, and but don't, if you've got, last piece before I go, if you have a C-section and you've taken my advice and you've taken an iPad and you decide you're going to watch program, watch something.
Don't watch One Born Every Minute.
Yeah, that. But do you know what I did? I downloaded Peter Kay's Car Share. Have you ever laughed? Have you ever belly laughed when you've had a C-section? I had to ring the woman because I was hurting so badly. I needed painkillers.
Did you get to there's a, I don't know.
One.
You might have to cut this bit, but it's the episode where she gets in the car and she's still rotten from the night before.
Yeah.
And it's the Princess Diana game.
Oh yeah. No, do you know what? The one that was got me is the monkey one where the monkey's in the back seat with the Elton John glasses.
Yes. I'd forgotten about that one. Oh,
and I was like this way, ha 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 ha, because I couldn't laugh because of my stomach.
Oh, I did that where I got home, and I think it was a couple of days after, and I can't remember what I laughed at, but I literally just doubled over and I sat really, really still because I thought I felt something like pop.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, is that my stitches? But it wasn't, it was just something else. So, but yeah.
You know what, Louise, we'll finish on that. Basically, our tip is don't laugh if you've had a C-section for at least
Don't laugh if you had a C-section. Don't watch Peter Kay's Car Share. Don't watch One Born Every Minute. Take all the pain relief.
And Louise is now off to look after Babby and
I am. I've got Babby, and the dog has popped up as well. So I'm going to go and see to my daughter.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Take care. See you later. Bye.
Bye.